tries to harm them, fire comes out of their mouths and devours their enemies. Good morning, everyone. Well, I mean, it's going to be like the afternoon in 4 minutes for me. But we have another diagram. If you guys do enjoy this type of content, do me a favor, leave a sub and a comment below letting me know that you actually enjoy this type of stuff, because I love making it. So we'll get to all of this soon in a second. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope to see this channel, go well and stuff, because I want to do my dues, my part for, the Lord that I worship and stuff. And I feel as though that this would be a good way for me to do it. Anyways, let's jump into this. So here you see at the top, it's called ita supra, ita infra. What it means is thus above, thus below in Latin. We have God with an infinity symbol next to it being pointed down at a circle. So this circle is the all-encompassing nature of God, meaning everything in here is merely a quality of God. It is this will be the function of how these things move dynamically through the existence of God, right? So these are the predicates. So the first things that we have are thus above, thus below, ita supra, ita infra. So what this means is thus above is extending into the macrocosm, which is the large scale of everything, not just the universe. In this case, it would be the universe, but we would say beyond that, beyond just the universe. So it would be the infinite in dimension and the infinite in realm. So heaven, essentially, what we as Christians believe to be heaven. But it would not be hell, and I'll explain why in a moment. And then the next would be the microcosm, which is the infinite in the downward scale. So you have the Planck distance, which is micro, and then you have the entirety of the universe, which is macro, right? So when we go down to the microcosm, we're experiencing a infinite separation, or a infinite moving away from God. You are descending down to the smallest point. So where the macrocosm is the greatest common denominator, the microcosm is the least great common denominator. The actual, like the minimalistic point that you could ever go to. Sorry, I know I'm prattling a little bit. The macrocosm is much easier to explain. So here we have the upside down A and the right side up A. So this would be the opposing direction in which you would fall, right? So you would fall upward, or you would fall upward towards the upside down A, which is the alpha, or the major macrocosm. You'd be falling upward into the macrocosm. And then the right side up A, you'd be falling downward into the microcosm. So before we get here to endless rise and endless fall, we're going to address the infinity symbols that are there. So the infinity symbols are just that. Once you breach past the ceiling and the floor, you would be falling infinitely in both directions, either falling or rising, or, whatever direction you decide to go through. Okay. So now we have, all of this stuff. These are the things surrounding it. The type and anti-type reflected onto the anti-type and type. That would just be, coinciding with each thing. The anti-type is the anti-type to the type. And backwards, I just put it there for fun. We can do without this. So let's start with here, this bracket right here. So anything in between the floor and the ceiling would be the spiritual world and earth. So this ball right here is the direct middle point that sits between both sides. And if you notice, the air and floor symbol, or the air and earth symbol for the air and floor alchemical symbols, are what is signifying the actual triangles that make up the ita supra, ita infra, the twin itas, right? So the circle here is the earth and the spiritual world, and everything in between that is temporary, meaning you don't break past the ceiling or the floor, and you stay within the tangibility or the you have the capability of becoming modal, right? So all things within this are modal, but once you get past the floor and ceiling, then it becomes infinite. So now that we have that, uh, let's talk about the actual ceiling. So breaching into the ceiling would be purgatory. So you die, and then you go to Christ, and He has to purge you of his sin, of your sin, your concupiscence, right? Concupiscence is like your desire to commit sin. So you would be at the ceiling, which is a focal point right there. So the second you are done in purgatory, however long that lasts, Christ sends you upward into the infinite macrocosm, where you are endlessly rising or being endlessly embraced by God, meaning welcomed into the presence of God. You are the opposite of separation. And because God's presence is infinite, He can have an infinite distance to bring you closer to Him. Good afternoon, by the way. It's been 4 minutes. So He has an infinite distance to bring you closer toward Him. So this would be purgatory, the macrocosm, and the endless rise or embrace. And then the next one is allowance. So we as Christians, Catholics, Christians, Eastern Orthodox, believe that hell is not punishment for sin, it is the allowance for you to continue sin without the presence of God. And you wonder, how can God remove His presence even though He's ever present? The answer to that question is it would be spiritual modality. So you are being endlessly pulled away from the presence of God, but you can't actually escape that presence. But you are still within your sin. You are purely in sin, so you would take it as an infinite torment, or some would say annihilation. I don't think that, because of the perpetual innocence theory that I can make another chart on, and I can talk about it. So the allowance makes you breach into the floor, go past the floor, and fall into the infinite microcosm, which is a perpetual distance away from God. So you're not literally being completely separated. That's impossible, because God is all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present. He must push you away infinitely by your own request, your own desire, which would be, how you've lived your life, or how God perceives your direction, or when you are in judgment, what you actually stand for yourself, because the soul is pure. You would probably say, I don't want to be with you, as that would be the ultimate expression, right? So essentially, this is the all-encompassing of eta supra and eta infra. This is a modal diagram that explains the actual movement during death and the capabilities of the movement in God. So this is functionally how things move inside of God's presence. So you fall upwards infinitely, or downwards infinitely, away infinitely, or close infinitely. So it's interesting that that you would be in a state of endless indifference, but God's perspective on you would not be. There's a lot here, and it took me a little bit to make this, but we can go through some of the other things. Type and antitype are things by themselves, right? So in Davidic typology in the Bible, there's the type, which is the thing that sets the precedent for what the actions of a future thing would be. I can't think of perfect examples right now. I can think of Adam, who ate the fruit of knowledge and brought the experience of evil into the world. And then there's Jesus, who would be the anti-type of Adam, who essentially destroyed death, removing the wages for sin. In permanent death, right? For anybody who exists within the presence of God. That's under the assumption that you are Christian. or I guess Jewish would be in that case. And then you would have the type or the antitype. Then it would be the antitype to Christ. Would be the Antichrist, who would, bring people further into sin, allowing the sin of Adam to fully be realized through its fruits, so that the tree of the experience of evil would be fully realized. And these two just kind of go inside each other or coincide each other because I thought it was neat. Here would be the diagrammatic representation of the three heavens. So I believe that space is infinite on the outside, and that we only have like the observable universe, but what I believe doesn't really matter about that. So here we have, which would be the sky at the first triangle, and then we have space or the cosmos in the second triangle, and then we have the true breaching into infinity, the spiritual realm. These are called the three heavens. I think it's in Revelation. The reason I didn't make them for hell was because I couldn't find anything for hell. But so we have the three heavens here, and this ascends into infinity at some point. So space kind of does. I just put it still inside of the triangle, not going out, because I don't really know if space is truly infinite. I don't think anybody really can know. But the reason I included purgatory and allowance here was because Christ needs to rid you of your sin at some point in some way. So the Catholics think that you die, but this could also be the Protestant belief of, you're rid of your sin and made a new creature in Christ, that your spirit as a Christian is pure. But I don't think that's very satisfying to believe. So I think when you die, you go into purgatory if you are in a state of sin. And then you are rid of that sin. And then you have the allowance, where it's the same exact thing, but the inverse effect, where Christ fulfills your concupiscence or fills you with concupiscence, which is the exact permission that God is giving you, saying, so the purgatory is saying, you wish to be with me, therefore you shall rid of your sin. You wish to not be with me, therefore I shall allow your sin, right? And we actually see this in scripture, in Exodus, I think it is, where Pharaoh has his heart hardened, which is a preemptive judgment or a preemptive justice that God gave through his all-knowing and all-goodness. Rather than trying to convince Pharaoh, he allowed Pharaoh to go with his own direction, because God knew that Pharaoh was not going to, and this would be in the case of any possible world, right? So this is my eta supra, eta infra diagram, thus above, thus below diagram, my twin etas, if you want to call it. If you guys want to do me a favor, in the link down below, I'm writing a book called Eta Infra. It is about the Antichrist. Do me a favor, drop a sub, drop a comment, let me know what you thought. I like making these. I will see you guys in the next one. You have a great day.